Before I talk about my first panic attack in a long time, here's a little bit of my walk this morning that I took with my son. This was, and it always is, a great way to begin the day. Let's take the jungle path. Oh. Kugal. Good eye. I had my first panic attack in nearly a year and a half last night. It feels like admitting failure saying that. But in terms of mental health, there are no failures. There is not a score that you keep track of like in a sports game. It is all about... oui. Bisika. Right. Eniche. Couvert. Merci beaucoup. Well, that's kind of rude of me to be eating in front of you. I forgot I had even ordered this. This, by the way, is a very, I don't know if it looks appetizing on the camera, but my last video I was talking about histamine. That is chicken sauteed with garlic and ginger, carrot, some Thai basil, some green pepper, and some cabbage, served with rice. Very histamine-friendly meal. Merci beaucoup. Anyway, that has to cool down, so I'm not going to just sit here chowing down food while I'm trying to talk to you. So, this panic attack, the circumstances, the ingredients of the panic attack, I've gone quite some time without having one, even though there's been several occasions where in the past, like before I'd started taking benzodiazepines, or certainly during benzo withdrawal, I had had the ingredients for a panic attack. And recently, in this, say, past year and a half, when I haven't had one, I don't want to use the word resilience, because that's a word that seems to be getting seriously abused in like self-help, wellness circles. I do think, though, the combination of my wisdom about what I've gone through, what caused my panic attacks before, going through benzo withdrawal, my awareness of myself, my self-knowledge, and my understanding of the mechanism of the actual panic attack itself, particularly because I had an extraordinary amount of health anxiety before. That wisdom and understanding has helped prevent panic attacks in this period, and also the other building blocks, the inputs, my food and drink, my avoidance of alcohol, avoidance of caffeine, not entirely, but limiting those things to reduce the stimulation on my nervous system, clean eating, exercise, all of these things that are undisputably part of a healthy life. Those also are part of the equation in me not having a panic attack. Prevention is the best medicine, they say, when they're talking about physical maladies, but it's also definitely the case when it comes to mental health, not putting ourselves in situations where we could possibly have a panic attack or some other episode. I've been able to do that. Last night, the the right number of ingredients, circumstances, however you want to call it, came together at the right moment for them to kind of overwhelm my defenses. Whatever preventative measures I had taken, put in place, it was too much. I was kind of thinking about it this morning, and I was riding, we're in the rainy season now, so there's a lot of storms, a lot of rain. And a couple days ago, I was riding the bike, and it was mid-afternoon, and the sky was getting a bit dark in one area, but there was kind of a patchiness to it. It wasn't like this black wall that you sometimes see here, and you know that just the whole city's about to get inundated. And this patchiness of the clouds and the layout of the clouds kind of suggested to me maybe I'll be able to ride home the route I had planned taking, and I'll be able to get home before I get soaking wet, caught in a storm. And it's kind of like that when you're going through life and you're not having panic attacks, and you have a manageable amount of anxiety, and it's like your worries and your preoccupations are all kind of situated nicely, and you can see them. And I'm probably doing too much with these analogies, but you see, I was riding the bike and I see this dark cloud over here, and it's kind of like, it might be moving towards me, but I see there's a bit of blue around it, or there's a bit of clouds around it, but not the same color as that cloud. So it's like, okay, and now over here on this side, there's another cloud, but I kind of see a path forward. I can kind of, line up all the worries, deal with them one by one, and I don't get overwhelmed. While I was riding the bike, what happened was all of a sudden the clouds started doing this like metamorphosis, and then I looked up, and all of a sudden 2 clouds started blurring together, and it seemed like 2 minutes after that, like a physically impossible time frame for it to happen. It seemed like now all of a sudden the clouds had all merged into like this super cloud, and it was dark, and all of a sudden the daylight has been diminished, and then the rain began, and I got dumped on. I mean, it just came down, and I didn't have any rain gear. I didn't have a bridge to get under. There was no place to take quarter shelter. I was just in it, and I had to just go through it. And I mean, at one point I stopped because it was basically like a whiteout with the rain. It was so thick, and I just pulled over and I stopped, and I just got soaked. There was a tree nearby. I tried to park under a tree for a moment, but I mean, the tree was basically a cascade underneath it as well. There was like a small waterfall coming underneath the tree, and so I got completely soaked. You're completely soaked when your shoes, your feet are squishing around in your shoes and everything. Anyway, I made it through that, obviously, and the rain eventually stopped. I got dried out over a period of hours. I got back and I changed. I showered and I changed, and I got dried off. And he was okay. Last night, with this panic attack, there's a lot on my mind right now, namely our business that is facing a possible bankruptcy situation, or maybe driven to close by the tax office. We're dealing with an exceptional electricity crisis, sometimes up to 18-hour power cuts in a day, and a lot of our clients, our core clients, which were a lot of expats, have been driven out of the country by either directly by a government policy here, or indirectly, basically, but all relating to the current political situation in Mali. And we are running out of places to turn, and this business has existed. I've been personally involved in this business since 2014 as a part owner, but I've known it since 2010. It's existed since 2009. I am a very sensitive person, a very sentimental person, a very nostalgic person. I get attached to places, and there is a lot wrapped up in this particular place, independent of my current financial situation and the financial future, that makes it very difficult to imagine this place not being in my life anymore. But then when you start layering the other stuff on top, the financial uncertainty. So basically since 2019, when we had to move locations then straight into COVID, we've been in a very precarious financial situation. I talked about this in one of my other previous videos when I first started taking benzodiazepines, kind of the catalyst for starting to take it. It was wrapped up a lot in this, what's been a very tumultuous time basically since 2019. But now it feels like we're really kind of possibly reaching the end of the road. And my savings have been not completely decimated, but they're not in a very good place. And we have months ahead of us now with this business that are uncertain at best, and I don't want to say that it's guaranteed that we're going to have to close, but it's looking that's now going to be the most likeliest scenario. I've been self-employed or running some kind of business with a partner in West Africa since 2010. I haven't had a real job since May 2010. Now I have a family. I've got 2 kids, 7 and 3 years old. I have my wife. She produces like some of her own clothing, and she makes handbags and different things. It's not enough to support our family. I also have this other project running scooter trips based out of Senegal, and that, when that's working well, was a very nice complement to this hotel and restaurant business. And when they were both working together, it was we had a very comfortable life. We're sending our kids to a good school here, and our ability to save, we had an ability to put money on the side, and we had a very comfortable life with lots of friends. And our children, up until now, I mean, they don't know exactly what's going on in this current situation, but they've had a very good childhood so far. But now it looks like that is, I don't want to say it's coming to an end, that they're going to start having a bad childhood necessarily, but we're approaching a possible permanent break with Mali. It'll never be permanent because my wife's family is from here. We'll always be coming back here. But we are facing a cataclysmic possibly series of events coming up in front of us, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So the doubts I'm having about our next steps in our lives, and what are the possibilities, and my current financial situation, and what the future allows, and there's a lot to be preoccupied with, a lot to be worried about. Now you put that together with the actual other circumstances of yesterday, which involved another couple of meetings with people trying to resolve things that didn't go exceptionally well. Then the evening, the generator was on, and I was inside the bed underneath the mosquito net and feeling a certain kind of claustrophobia that was layered on all of the other stuff I'm thinking about. And then the sound of the generator, which has been this is adding a sensory layer to everything now. And the sound of the generator is something that can be really maddening to me. And if you're going through benzo withdrawal, you can have, even before benzo withdrawal, if you're just going through life and you have certain anxieties, you can have certain triggers, and some of them can be sensory related. And for me, the sound of the generator just can really get buried somewhere inside my head and start festering, and it sounds like it's becoming louder. And then I start actually thinking about the generator, and all of a sudden you start noticing a sound that doesn't sound like it was there. And if that thing fails, then it's really game over for us. So there's an extra bit of worry about it failing. But then just the sound of it, the intensity of it, it sounds like it's getting louder. And then underneath this mosquito net in the dark, and then all of a sudden the physical symptoms, feeling like I can't breathe, my heart's racing. And just like that, the storm clouds have all merged into one and it's system overload. And now it's feeling like, okay, can I physically move? Can I catch my breath? And going back to what I said before about having the wisdom about going through the experience of having panic attacks and then going through benzo withdrawal, the one thing I will say is that now I'm a lot more grounded when it comes to recognizing my health anxiety and knowing that a panic attack is not a heart attack, because I was very concerned about cardiac issues before. And I can say, without a doubt, I've moved past that. Last night, what I did was I got out of the bed. I got myself out of the bed, out of the room. I came out to just kind of not far where I'm sitting right now, just over there, and I was sitting in front of the pool. And it was raining a bit. It was a light rain. The bats were darting around, and I just sat there looking at the pool, watching the bats. I did a couple of these breathing techniques, box breathing, inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, inhale. So yeah, makes a nice little square of 4 seconds on every side. And the rain itself, actually, I know some people say that cold water is something that kind of jolt your vagus nerve back into the right position, sort of. Cold water, a cold washcloth. Some people can hold an ice cube. Some people put a cold washcloth around their neck, splash water on their face. There's a reason why we splash cold water on their face. It kind of jolts our vagus nerve back into a position where our neural activity seems like it can kind of be manageable again. The rain was, I was just letting myself sit in the rain, watch the pool, and I was on the opposite end, basically, of the property as the generator. So that infernal racket of the generator was a bit distant. And just watching these bats do their thing, like they were kind of darting over the pool and then flying up, and obviously they were catching some insects that were probably hovering over the pool. And it just diffused it. It diffused the whole thing. And I was not really able to get back to sleep outside of probably, it was probably about 30 to 40 minutes of sleep sometime around 5 a.m. I went back to the room. I probably stayed outside of the room for about 45 minutes. I went back. I couldn't really sleep. I tried to read for a bit, and then eventually my body, things gave way, and I was physically exhausted, and I slept for probably about 40 minutes. I woke up this morning feeling not fantastic, but also not with an overwhelming sense of dread, which is something I dealt with for a long time, particularly during benzo withdrawal. I think I'm making my peace with the situation and the reality that this place is probably no longer going to be a part of my life, and it's not going to be the breadwinner anymore that it's been for all these years. And that reality it was coming into focus in a very chaotic way, and now it's coming into focus in a way that I have some clarity about it. I don't want to say I'm fully at peace yet. There's like some parts, it's like when you latch onto a thought, and sometimes not thinking about the thought, you kind of remember, oh, what was that thing I was thinking about that was like causing me so much dread? And you kind of forget about it for a minute, and then you grab hold of it again, you're like, oh, right, that thing. And the dread kind of comes back, and you remember why you were worried and you were dreading it and having anxiety over it. I think that there's still quite a lot of dread there, but I think that whole experience last night was a needed step. Ultimately, a needed step in the right direction. Maybe it did not have to get to that point where I had to have physical symptoms, where I had to have a panic attack, to the point, I couldn't catch a breath. all I know is that now, today, I am in a much better place. And if you put me in this same situation 4 years ago, before I started taking benzodiazepines, or during the time I was taking benzodiazepines, or when I got off, certainly when I got off, when I was going through withdrawal, at any of those different phases of my life, recent phases of my life, I would have not been able to manage those circumstances and that panic attack the way I did yesterday. So that is, in a lot of ways, a huge relief. And again, an encouraging sign for me that I'm really starting to just understand myself better. Vous êtes invité. You are invited to have lunch with me. I'm not going to keep the camera running as I eat my lunch. I will give you my feedback for the first bite, though, and let you know how it is. Highly recommend this dish. And letting it cool down. That was a good call as well. I think the flavor's been really able to settle in. Olive oil, chicken, some vegetables that are low in histamine, Thai basil. Basil is also not a problem for histamine. Ginger and garlic, both of which are incredibly beneficial if you are intolerant of histamine. Ginger is a very good natural antihistamine and has actually performed better in some studies than actual antihistamines. Anyway, sorry, this is rude, talking while I'm eating. You guys have a fantastic day, and I hope you are doing well wherever you are.